Hi, my name is Alessandro Candelosi and that's a video tutorial coming from cgcookie.com for Max Cookie. Today we'll continue the cloaking with PFlow series we just started, and we'll try to move faster to create some more layers. We started on the past series, on the past tutorial, to prepare the particles, and we started also to prepare the material for the metal sphere. Today I like to prepare some passes animated. So the purpose is, at the beginning we have nothing, so we are not seeing the sphere, and then we are seeing the sphere. So we have to do two stuff. The first one is to have the metal sphere with the animated noise as we done yesterday. But we need also another material, and it's appearing, let's say appear glass sphere. So in this case we need to have, let's say, a blend material. We can assign to the sphere, and one material is the glasses, so let's call it glass. So this one is the first material. Let's paste as an instance. We can swoop, okay. And the first one is a completely transparent material. So in this case we have a black material, we have no reflectivity, we have complete transparency, and we have the IRR set to 1. So you see we have a complete transparent material. Let's say that at the beginning it is completely visible, the first one. So if we go to render and let's set no displacement, let's go for 600 and a really low anti-alias and a really low global illumination. If we go to render in this case, we should have a really simple render. You see, we see the particles, so we adjust to remove the particles from the rendering. Okay, but you see that the sphere is not visible. So let's cancel and select the PF source, and we can set to off. Let's save this scene in the new folder. Okay, so in this case we have no visibility for the sphere, and we like to make it visible. So we need to control everything using a mask. So let's go there. And something that can be done is to use a noise. So with a noise we'll animate the sphere. To make the noise visible, we can do something really simple. Let's copy this one. Let's use a temp material and paste, and then assign this material, so we can see what we are doing over this one. Let's say that the scaling is different, maybe 10, and I like to have more differences between the two material. We can use the turbulence, but we can swap the material, and then we can play again with the look we are trying to simulate. Let's use maybe 7. If we go to render, let's go in the isolation, and we go to render and we render just the sphere. Just to be sure, let's see if the scaling is the same. It is similar. So we have this one, we can tune a little bit this map. Let's go a little bit lower. Let's say something like that. You see that it seems like an energy over this material. Let's go just to have a little bit more, and let's see with less levels. Okay, so let's imagine that this one is the map. Let's scale a little bit, and let's say that the movement will go for maybe let's say the first passage is like 3 seconds, so there the phase will be maybe 2. Okay, we have to control the animated curve, so this one is linear and this one is linear, close. So now the speed is the right one. Okay, we have to change some more value too, because I like to have the full material there. So let's say that at the beginning we have 0 and 0. Let's say 0.05, and when we go there at 100%, we have this one will be 1 and the second one will be near 1, 2. Okay, so we can see how it is working. You see that the parameters are too similar, so to do something different, let's see what happened in this case. You see that it's starting to appear, then it is starting to be full, and now the sphere is completely covered. We can maybe move this key there to slow down the filling, so you see that it's appearing and then it is starting to full, and then it is full. So in this case, let's go back to the material editor. We can copy this one and paste as an instance there. Then we can assign again this material. So you know, we have this material appearing, so that means that maybe we can change a little bit the curve. So let's go in the appear glass. We have the map there. Okay, and you see there we have the map. Okay, let's try with something like that. You see that the sphere is appearing, so that means that if I go at this frame and we try to render, you see that the sphere is appearing. So let's close and exit from the isolation, and let's see what do we have in rendering in this case. You see that the map is appearing. Let's see when we are at, for example, frame 65. You see that the sphere is starting to be more visible. and we are near to have the complete visibility of the sphere. So that's really nice. So let's say we have this this part of the animation ready, so we can render these layers. But another thing I like to render is a pass, and that's a pass just with a mask that is revealing the actual render there. So to do something like that, we can first of all go inside the rendering, and we can use, for example, the state sets, and we can have more little window there. So that's the first state, and the first state can be called glass fx. Let's imagine that we like to have another state, and let's say plus, and the second state is glass mask. To prepare this one, we have to set record, and we can let's say use this one, and this one can have a matte, and we can set the rendering later. So there, now we can use the matte, we can use also the matte shadow. Let's say that we have no shadows, no ambient occlusion. So it should work in this way. Then the sphere can have this map, but it is self-illuminated. Okay, and another thing, we can select the light source, we can set to off this one, and the omni can be set to off, and in the material editor we can have no final gather. So everything should be okay. We can stop the record, we can select this one, and we should have everything set in the right way. Okay, so let's try again to render with a first state. Okay, it works. Let's call the glass mask state, and let's render. In this case we should have a completely black render, but if we go, for example, there, we should have the mask of the sphere, and you see that we have the mask with the band. So this one will be useful to make some composition. Let's render. So let's go back there, and we have the first mask ready. So what happened later? Later we have another problem. We have to make appear the other sphere. We can use again the manage state sets. Let's go to the first one. Okay, and let's create a new state, and let's say metal fx. So this one will be the metal sphere. To have the metal sphere, we have to go to this one, record, and we can assign this one, the material, to this one. We have to animate the this material, so I move the state sets, or maybe we can close this one. Sorry. Okay, and now we have to animate this map, and you know that this map is upside there. That's the noise, and it has the same problem. So at the beginning it is not visible, and to have no visibility we can have just 0 and 0.5. So auto key, and again we can use 100 frame, and we can go to 100, 1 and 0.05. So the material is appearing. We have just to swap the material because we start with the glass and we like to arrive to the metal one. So you see it is starting to be metal. Okay, nice. Go back in the noise and auto key 100%, and let's go to have 1 for the face. We can go back there and we should be ready to have everything to create the appearing. So let's stop the recording. Let's check again that everything works. This one works, this one works, and this one works too. So save, and let's try to render, for example, a frame from the number 43. And you see that the metal is near to be completely revealed. We can change a little bit the curve. So record, and let's go to the material there. First of all, this one is linear and this one is linear. And then we have the animation there, and we can change the curve. And let's say that we have a curve like that, and the same there, but just a little bit more. Okay, let's try to render the frame number 43 again, but stop the recording just to see if we have a little bit more glass still visible, and you see that we have more glass visible. Okay, so let's go back to the first one. I like to test if everything is working fine with the latest changes we've done to the material. So let's see the map, and everything is fine. So we have the different state sets for the various material, and we have all we need to prepare some composition. But I like to continue working at the particles we started on the last. So let's close. Oh, sorry, again. Let's go on the first one, and let's close the state sets, and we can select the particle flow source and enable. So that's what we have actually. We can have a little bit more particles. So let's see, for example, with there a distance of 0.5. Okay, you see that we have more particles all over there, but let's see with a more low value. I think that something like that can be nice, but let's see, we have In the beginning we have nothing, then they are forming and they are moving all around. Maybe if we have more particles can be better. Let's see with 40. And let's try to make dying the particles a little bit later. Let's try with 40 frames, and again a little bit less step size to have more particles. And let's see if we have nothing. I think that in this way it can be nice. Okay, so let's close and save, and save also for 3ds Max 2013, because we'll move to work on the particles with Krakatoa just a little bit of setup later. But before, I like to start preparing another layer of particles. The second layer of particles will be done using again this render node, and we'll create a new event, and this event will try to see if we can use a bird texture, and we can connect to this one. And this one will be let's say that the particles will start to be emitted at the frame 0 and will stop at the frame 100, because our map are animated in 100 frames. And actually we're using the tricks, and this layer for the moment will be done just in this way, so nothing so complex. It is really simple, and I like to see what happens if we try to use this way. So let's go to the initialization parameters. So you see we have there all the value. We have 100% for the map. We have the timing, let's say 100. We have the material, and I like to use in this case a different materials, so we can use the first one. To do something like that, we can go there, manage state, and let's go in the glass mask. So we'll use the material. The object emitter is the sphere, and we have nothing more, I think. Okay, let's try to see what happens if we go to create the particles. So let's say initialize particle emission, and we should see later how it is working. Okay, let's go back in the particle flow. We should have there. Okay, and let's set to not enable this part, and let's see what happened. Okay, you see we have the particles flowing down and falling the sphere. So back there, let's say that we are using dots, and let's say that we are in shaded mode, and that the sphere is visible as a box. So in this case, if we move forward, you see that the particles are falling our sphere in this way. We have just 10,000 particles, and we are using just the bird. So let's imagine that we are using the particle shape. Let's say, just to start, we are using the cube. and we are using the geometry. So in this case, you see we are creating the particles using the shape we just chosen. So I like to create something different, and we can use the shape mark. So we can use the sphere to create a contact particle. So let's go a little bit forward. Okay, you see that it is creating actually just some rectangle. Let's say that this rectangle are bigger. Let's say 3 centimeters for 3 centimeters. And actually you see that's the alignment, and the alignment is based to the speed of the particles. But I like to do something different. I like to use as a shape the box intersection. So we are trying to make an intersection between the sphere and the box. So let's say maybe 2 centimeters, hollow, multiple elements, and continuous update. Let's go there, and then back at the frame, for example 32. So it is let's say with now multiple elements, and you see that's what it is creating over our particles. Let's go forward to see when we have more particles what happen. And you see that we have all those particles over our sphere. So now, just to see how it looks, we'll prepare a preview. So create preview animation. Let's say 75%, and let's say the first 100 frames from the shaded view, and create. So I like to tweak a little bit the particles because this way is a little bit slow. So let's try to use a simpler way. So we use the bird, and let's remove just for a moment the shape, and let's use also the position object. Okay, and we say that the particles will be emitted starting from the frame 0 until the 100. Let's try to use 200 particles. And let's go back, position objects, add. Okay, you see that the particles are starting to born over the mesh. Now we can say that we have this kind of particles, and you see that we have particles created over the surface. Let's say that the box 8 is higher, let's say 10 centimeters. And I like also to use a different shape. So let's select the sphere. Let's make a clone. Let's say that's the PF sphere. Obviously the PF sphere is not renderable. It has less segments. Let's say 16, maybe 24 for the moment, and it has also the shell modifier, and it is outer for 1 centimeter for the moment. Also the sphere, the second one, is display as box, and back in the particle system we say that the shape mark is with a second sphere. Okay, so it is a little bit faster than before. Let's say that to see better it is a little bit bigger, So you see we have a lot of particles over the surface. We can try to use more particles to see if it is faster enough, and it seems not so slow. And you see we are creating the surface just using this one. So the main problem now is that we need to use the material to create the particles. So let's save. And to do something like that, we have just to say inside the position objects that we are creating the particles over the surface, but the density of the particles is controlled by the grayscale, and you know that we are creating the black and white mask. So in this case it can be a little bit slower, as you see, to create the particles, but we can prepare, for example, a preview just to see how it looks. As you see, it is creating the particles using this one. So now something I like to do is to go back, and we can prepare a preview. So this process will work in this way. Obviously we need more particles, and we'll use obviously also a lower scale for the particles. I like then to add also another process done with the particles, and we'll prepare it. Okay, so let's close this one, and we have the first setup. I like to start preparing also the comp project where we add all the particle passes and all the effects. But before, let's go in the particles just to speed up. Let's set to off, because maybe we need some additional layers to prepare some stuff. And I mean some additional layers as the glass mask. So we'll use just different maps and different colorings. So let's go inside Fusion, and let's start using the add tool, input output loader, and we can load some layers. I rendered some frames for all the passes we have actually, and let's start with the glass effects, but let's load also the others with other loader nodes, mask, and also the metal. So we can start to prepare our project. So that's the frames. Let's say that we have for the moment 300 frames, and the same there. So let's have more space. So something that we have to do is to change the gamma to see in the better way, so we can use the color, and let's go in the color correction. Let's connect, and let's go to 2.2. Okay, so let's see in play what we have there. Okay, you see that's the glasses appearing. We have just to don't use the first frame, because you see we have some kind of problem during the rendering. So we can say that the start, the beginning is the frame 1. Or we can go back to the 0, and there we can say that we load from the first frame. In this case, if we go and play, you see that it works. Okay, so first of all, that's the first frame, but we need also another loader. So let's Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, and let's remove this merge. So this one will be the first frame. So we say to use the first frame, just the first frame, and it will be 300 frames long. And obviously everything should need to use the color correction there. So let's start with the first one. So our animation, you see, is just a single frame. Then we have this one that will need to appear, but we need some particle effects over. But obviously we have no particles actually, so maybe we can just use, for example, the mask just to be sure that we have something, or we can add later. So we know that after a while we have this merging, so we can use a composite merge. The background will be the single frame. Then we go in the color correction, we go in the color correction, and the foreground is this one. So if we go there, we need to animate there the merging, and we have to remember also that we'll have let's think about maybe 50 frames where we have nothing, so the global in will be 50, so everything will be composite later. And then we know that at the frame 51 or maybe 50 we have no blending. Let's animate, and then maybe in let's say 100 frames we have the blending. So in this case, if we go and play, you see that we have nothing, and in this case we'll have the particles. Then you see that we are starting to see this piece appearing. Okay,